Welcome back. Now that we have a printer connected and set up ready to print, let's take a look at actually printing a document. Let's start with Microsoft Word. Printing from most programs is fairly similar. I'll show you Microsoft Word and Notepad so that you can see what I mean. Once we have a file open in Word that we want to print, this could be a document that you have just created or an existing document that you now want to print. I've just got a sample document here. It's 4 pages long and I've just put this in the middle of each page to help us identify what is going on. So now we are ready to print. Just go to the File option in the top left and then select Print. Within the Print section we have a preview of the document on the right. That is just to give you an idea of what it should look like when it's printed. The main section is on the left, where we have a few options. Let's take a look at what we can do here. At the top we have a nice big print button. Just click that to print the document. We'll come back to it in a minute though. Let's have a look at some of the options before we send this document to the printer. Just to the right of the print button we have number of copies. If you want more than one copy, just increase this to the desired amount. You can either use the arrows on the right or just click in the box and type in the new number. Then we have printer selection. I have discussed the default printers in the last lesson. Whichever printer we have selected as a default will show in this box. If you want to send it to another printer, just click on the box and you'll get a drop-down list of all the printers connected or set up on your computer. Just click the one that you want to send this document to. Just below this we have a link to open printer properties. I've gone into detail on the options here over the last couple of videos. It's where you can change things such as printing in black and white or colour. Then we have the settings section. The first says print all pages. Pretty straightforward. Let's have a look at what other options we have. From here we can select to print the current page. So if you're working, let's say, on a 3-page document and want to check just how this page looks when it's printed, then you could change this to print current page. Just below this drop down we have a pages box. In here we can type the pages we want to print. So if I wanted just page 2 and page 4, I type in 2, then a comma, then 4. The comma basically says and, so 2 and 4. What if we wanted just the first 3 pages? Well, now we can type 1-3. So the hyphen says 2 or through, so 1 to 3 or 1 through to 3. You can do any combination of this, so you could enter 1-3, 8, 12. This would print pages 1, 2 and 3, and also pages 8 and 12. This can be quite a powerful tool for just printing the pages that you want, rather than reprinting the whole document just to get a couple of pages. Some printers allow you to print on both sides of the page. This uses a feature called duplexing. You might hear something like, this printer does duplex prints, or something similar. If my printer can print on both sides, then with the next drop down I can select whether I want to use this feature. If my printer can't automatically print on both sides, then I have an option to manually print on both sides. If I select this, then the document will print odd page numbers, 1, 3, 5, etc. Then it will tell me to reinsert the pages it just printed, so it can use the same paper to print the other pages, 2, 4, 6, etc. When I've needed to use this, it's always taken me a few tries to work out which way to insert the paper in order to get it to print the reverse pages correctly. I'd recommend doing a few simple tests to work this out before doing a long print run. The next option, collated, is used when printing multiple copies. Remember, I select the number of copies at the top. Let's say I have a 3-page document. I want to print 2 copies of this. When I have collated selected here, it will print page 1, then page 2, then page 3 from my first copy. Then it will print page 1, 2 and 3 from my second copy. If I selected uncollated, it would print page 1 from copy 1, page 1 from copy 2, then page 2 from copy 1, page 2 from copy 2, and then page 3 from copy 1, and finally page 3 from copy 2. If this is a little confusing, just look under each of the options to get a reminder of how it will print. Next option is fairly straightforward. We can select portrait or landscape. Notice the preview changes if we change the orientation. If I change this here, then it can throw my layout out quite a bit. It would have been better to change this while I was still editing or creating the document. I can then make sure that it displays as I expected. The document orientation can be changed from the layout ribbon. In fact, the next two options, paper size and margin spacing, can also be done while editing the document from the layout ribbon, which is where I would do it from, and again they can throw out the formatting of the document so it doesn't end up looking as you planned. But if you want to have a play around, then on the paper size drop down you have many standard sizes set up for you. Actually, your default option, in my case A4, is based on the region you live in. I think in America, for example, letter is a more common paper size. The margin is the amount of space around the edge of the page. Printers aren't capable of printing right to the very edge of the page. They generally need a little space to hold the paper. You can set a custom margin or select from one of the default options. If you change the margin but then notice that the edge of the document is missing, the most common thing here is for the very top or bottom of the page to be missing. Then it means that you have set the margin outside the area that your printer can actually print to. If you change the margin, just remember to check the document to make sure that it has printed everything. The pages per sheet option is quite a good way of getting an overview of the document. It kind of thumbnails the pages so you can print multiple pages to a single sheet of paper. Maybe not as useful when printing a document like this, but where this comes into its own is when you want to print slides from a presentation so you can make notes next to each slide. This page setup link at the bottom opens this dialog box which has many of the same options we've just looked at, but with slightly more granular options. So on the first tab I can specify each of the margin spaces, change paper orientation, and I have some slightly different options when printing multiple pages. These can be useful when printing a booklet. The paper tab again allows me to change the paper type used. I can also select which tray the printer uses. I mentioned trays in the last video, but here I can select the first page to use a different tray. Perhaps one tray has more premium paper and the rest of the document I want to use a different tray that is loaded with standard paper. The Layout tab allows me to change things such as the header and footer options. More on these in the word processing module of the Ecdl. Now that we have looked at all the options and changed anything that we want to, then we can click the print button at the top to send the document or job to the printer. You'll notice that as soon as you click print, you are taken back to the main editing view. If you're quick, then you may notice at the bottom Word is still sending the document to the printer. I've paused my screen so you can take a look at this. The longer or bigger the document is, or the more images, then the longer this bit will take. You can still use Word while this is happening, but I wouldn't close Word while this is still going on. If you close Word or shut your machine down while it's still sending the document, then you can end up with a lot of rubbish. Lots of random letters and symbols printing over many pages. In a few seconds, if you are close enough to hear, you should hear your printer starting to work and print out the document. Let's compare these options with the print options in another program. I've got another sample document, this time just in Notepad. I've got a file menu at the top again, so if I click that, then I can see an option to print. But just before we look at this, let's take a quick look at the one above, page setup. The layout is a little different, but we can still see the options to change the paper size, select the source or tray of paper that the printer will use. We've got page orientation and margins as well. So in Notepad, the page setup options are done from their own menu option. Let's now print this document, so we'll select print from the file menu. Now we have a list of all the printers connected. The tick indicates the selected default printer. If you want to print to a different one, then just click the one to print to. The Preferences button allows us to change things like printing in colour or black and white again. The Find Printer option allows you to select a printer on the network to send this document to. Best to look at lesson 3.5 for information on installing a printer though. And of course we have the same options to change the number of copies to print, the page range or selection, printing pages 1 to 3 or even pages, etc. And lastly, we have a tick box to collate the document as it's printing. To send this document to the printer, just click the print button, and again, after a few seconds, the printer should start to print the document. In this lesson, we have looked at how to print a document and the options we have when printing, including the number of copies to print, selecting which printer to use, what pages to print, what duplex printing is. Remember, that's printing on both sides of the page. The options have also included page setup, including orientation, page size and margin settings. I also mentioned that if you turn your computer off before it's finished sending the document to the printer, then you can end up with the printer just printing random characters and symbols, which can waste a lot of paper. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.